So I'm going to now hand over to Joe, who's going to be our first speaker. Also, to want to keep things moving, on the back of your program is a little biography of all the speakers. So I'm not going to do a long introduction for the speakers. They're going to talk for about 15 minutes. There'll be a few questions, but we've got a session straight after lunch where there's an opportunity to probe them in more detail about what they're doing. The one thing I will tell you about Joe is that he's a former Goldsmiths student. So, yeah, this is great to have our local representation. And is that you work at sort of.
Okay, let's make some hands if I'm not being loud enough, because I'm not sure if I'm down here. Okay, so good morning everybody. So I studied radio here a few years ago, and so just a little bit about me before I start. So I studied radio here, and then I worked as a journalist for a few years. Something which I think is relevant today is I work with a charity called OpenAcademia, who make documentaries, and we run courses for academics to help them use audio storytelling and podcasting as a way to make research more accessible. And I also run a multi-sensory design agency, so I'm kind of a little bit all over the place, but what these things have in common is they're all about communication and finding clear and elegant ways to allow people to explain what it is that they're doing. So today, I'm here representing Open Knowledge. And Open Knowledge is a not-for-profit. We were founded in 2004. We've had over a decade of experience working with organisations to unlock the value of their data. And a lot of this work has been around government, particularly my work has been with government open data portals. We built CCAN, which is the world's premier open data portal. So I'm going to start with a little story, which isn't based in academia, it's based in government, but I think it very clearly shows the value of open data from where we're coming from. And this is a true story, and it shows how UK government saved £4 million in 15 minutes thanks to open data. So I think as citizens, it's quite easy, now especially, for most people to understand the concept of open data and why it can be a benefit to them as individuals and also to society. But this story shows that, firstly, and there's kind of a willingness of organisations now to support openness. But often, even if this data exists and there's a willingness to share it, friction will prevent it from flowing where it's needed most and where it's most valuable. And universities and governments are really good examples of institutions who really do show a great willingness to make data available, but often the culture or the infrastructure makes this difficult. So in 2010, the UK government began publishing transactional government spending data as open data. And this was new. This meant that you could see an individual purchase, who bought it, and when. And this was a big thing, and one of the things that really made the UK government, still probably maybe is the world leader in openness. And the government really, when they announced this, they really didn't know the benefits that this would bring, and they quite openly admitted that. So that set the scene. Now we're going to fast forward 3.5 years, and Liam Maxwell, he's the UK government CTO at the time, and he's got an idea that he wants to buy a technical report, and he's got the idea that maybe some other government departments had already bought this or might be interested in it as well. So he thinks about how he can go about finding out this information. And in the pre-open data days, this probably wouldn't be worth his time. He'd have to call people up, he'd have to send emails out. People might have various different reasons for getting back to him or not getting back to him. But because spending information was published as open data, this meant that the problem was solved, right? So he could easily just go and find the stuff he wanted. Well, not quite, because this is the point I want to make. Even though the information was open, at the time each government department was publishing data as separate CSV files. So despite it being available, it was really difficult and laborious for him to sort of have to go through and find and dig out the information that he was looking for. So the magic here is that another organisation, an intermediary, had taken those CSV files and they'd organised them into a conveniently searchable whole on the OpenSpendy website. And this meant that Liam could, 3 clicks, 5-10 minutes, he could find out exactly the information he needed to, and through duplication that he found, he managed to save UK government £4 million. And open data had allowed him to turn a question into insight in literally minutes and save the government and taxpayer money in doing this. So the innovation isn't actually that the data is open. The real value is that it's possible to find and to use this data. So people, we have knowledge, we know things, but we need this information to flow between people in order to make use of this information. And build on it and drive change and support the projects we're working on. We basically need a better way of matching everything up. So universities are places where human knowledge is advanced and pushed to the next level. There's lots of people working on lots of different things, but how is this information shared? I think a paper is published and you've basically got to hope that somebody reads it and then tells somebody else about it. And the system relies on this, and I think we can probably all agree that it's far from perfect. And search engines only really go some, that's not really the ideal solution. So anybody should be able to use information to generate insights, because we're all in this together. And the end point here is that the best thing to do with your data is probably going to be thought of by somebody else. We very rarely know the value of our own thinking and of our own data. Okay, so this is an example of a platform that we've launched a couple of weeks ago. It's called Open Trials, which is an open-linked database of all publicly accessible data and documents on medical trials conducted in the whole world. So it's about helping doctors and researchers and patients make informed decisions which should lead to better treatments for all. And this sounds like quite an obvious thing, and it's a surprise to some people that this doesn't exist, but we've spent a couple of years developing this and building the tooling to allow this to happen. Which brings me to the project at Open Knowledge which I manage, which is called Frictionless Data, and it's overall about removing the friction we find in working with data. So we're developing a set of tools and specifications and best practices for processing, describing, and publishing that data. And at the heart of this is a data package, which is a containerization format based on existing practices for publishing open source software. And actually what we're doing as part of the Frictionless Data project specifically is we're taking what we've learned from creating open source software and working with government data and seeing how we can apply that to research data and academia. So this is an analogy we use to describe this, which is the history of shipping and specifically containerization, which had made a huge difference in the way that movement of goods around the world. We basically want to do the same for data. So in this analogy, the data package is the metal box, is the shipping container. And as a piece of technology, that's not complicated, it's not difficult to think of. What makes it powerful is the fact that all of the boxes are the same size. It's the cranes that lift the boxes, it's the fact that railway lines, the gauges are built so they fit the boxes in a certain number, and it's the fact that people understand there's a common language for understanding what's inside these things. So this is a drawing of a data package, and probably some people are coders and will understand code, but if not, this is a representation of that, which I'll just very quickly go through. This is a tabular data package, which is specially designed for working with spreadsheets and data which comes in tabular form. One of the things we're doing in our project is we're creating different data package formats for different research groups and people working with different kinds of data. So I'll talk a little bit more about that in a minute, but to very quickly go through what makes up a data package. It's the data, and you can put anything inside a data package. In this case, it's a CSV file. And a sort of point I think is worth saying is that in our approach, we want to make sure that people are not having to spend a lot of time messing around with the data before they get to the point of analysing it. So, and it also makes things, if you're using other people's data, it makes it more reusable, and it's easier to make an argument if you're not changing that data before you start thinking about it. So whatever your data is, we can chuck it in the data package. It also contains the data package itself, which is it's the box. It's a very basic description of what you can find inside. And also here is the JSON table schema, which is an open format for defining what we expect to find within the CSV file. So, with frictionless data, what we're doing is we're building the cranes around this. So that is, you can take a data package and you can plug it into one of the tools, which I'm going to describe in a minute, or you can take it and you can plug it directly into your analysis tool of choice. So I'm going to now give you an example of one of the tools that this approach allows. And this is one of the first things we built. It's a program called Good Tables, which is very simple, designed for checking the structure and the quality of a CSV file spreadsheet. So very simply, you upload your file into here, and it will tell you structural errors in the table, so missing headers, blank rows, etc., etc. And you've got the option of uploading a schema as well, so it will assess your file in relation to that as well. And it's a very, very simple report you get. It tells you quite simply what's wrong with the data and how to fix it. So if you're doing lots of processing of data, this is useful for you as an individual, but what I think is relevant for everybody is everybody works with data on some level. I expect, even in the humanities, people are likely to be organising things in spreadsheets. So with continuous validation, which is the next thing, which is an idea we've taken from software. So software projects have long used continuous integration services for making sure that the code is of high quality. Basically, every time there's an update to the code, it will generate a report and make sure that nothing else is going to break in it. So we're doing the same thing with data. If you've got a shared repository for a project, or you're uploading data over time, now with continuous integration using Good Tables, you can approve things as they go into it. So the idea is that we found that maybe well over 50% of the time working with data is spent messing around with that data and getting your data into a form which is usable and understandable by whatever tool it is you're using. So we think a tool like this, applied in the right way, can make a huge difference and slow down that time between having your material and thinking about it and actually generating an insight, which is what we're all here to do. So I've got 2 minutes left. Another couple of quick examples of tools are, so this is something we built for UK government, which is a spend publishing dashboard, which essentially it gives a measure of the quality of the data that different departments are releasing. So this can be a tool which can be used to help organisations understand what they need to do to make their data more open. And again, as simply as possible, and giving really clear pointers on what people need to do to improve that data. But it also provides a sort of league table. And in government, for example, and in universities, this is really important. And people get really excited about wanting to prove their openness. And it's one thing, we talk about open washing, it's one thing to talk about it and say you're open, but tools like this really mean that people have to put their money where their mouth is. Okay, so what we're doing at the moment is we're trying to build functionality with data packages for as many tools as possible. Perhaps you're using some of these tools in your research already. And just as a final point, something about the data package which is really useful is because your data will exist as a data package, you can simply plug it into any of these tools and it should be able to read it and understand it. So a data package is a good way of learning how to use new ways of working with and developing your data. So I've run out of time. I would love to talk to you more about this afternoon. I've got there's sort of lots of different options. I can show you how to make a data package in 3 minutes, or we can talk about some of the bigger issues. Let's see what people are interested in. So thank you all very much.
We have got time for a few questions. Let's work out how to do that. I think it's Sophia's next. Any questions there? Gary?
No. Thanks very much for the talk. It's really interesting. Casper started off by saying there was a kind of conflict between the people that were publishing knowledge and information and the people that were providing it. Kind of a conflict of their interests might not align. And I'm just wondering if you could say that about the same with regard to government initiatives around open data. For example, research seems to show that the most people that use open data are businesses, because most people don't have the technology, they don't have the time, they don't have the expertise to actually use that. So in an academic context, what it turns out is governments are kind of underfunding us on the one hand, and the other, we're supplying them with a whole load of free knowledge and information that they're then giving to companies for free that they can monetize and commercialize and kind of running us down.
So I think you're right, and actually I'm quite interested in agriculture, and I'm finding that agricultural open data is really getting a lot of attention at the moment. But people who are using it people who are getting the value of it are Syngenta and its Hellops, and it's the people who are just using that data to do better business. I think as open knowledge, we were kind of real forerunners in defining what openness means in terms of an idea and in terms of technology. And I think that it's really important that organisations like us exist, because we're there to make openness something which is accessible to everybody. Open data in itself can be used for good or evil. It's about what we do with it, and it's about educating people about what they can do, because people understand the freedom of information request, and they understand that that's valuable, but we need to make sure that all journalists understand the tools that they've got available to do their job, and we need to make sure that people on the street know what they're doing as well. Big business is sort of just catching up, and they maybe caught up a few years ago and they're really starting to roll out benefits. But I mean, I think it's a better world, which is an open world, and we all need to learn to exist within that. We also do work helping business work out how to generate insightful stuff, and from open data. I think that's just as important. That we can develop new economics and new economic systems around open data. So, but we do need to be careful about like the old system, if you like, just taking this and using it to their benefit, because that is something which I'm actually using a little more and more.
And one more question over here.
So you talk about frictions, and frictions can be embodied in various different forms. There's cultural frictions and social frictions, but it seems that the examples you've been given it is more to do with technical frictions. Can you give us some examples of how you try to remove the cultural, social frictions?
Well, especially my team and the Frictionless Data project it's a technology project. We're a team of coders essentially. So as open knowledge, some examples of friction that we're removing. So School of Data is a big part of what we do, which is an organisation who teach journalists and organisations skills about working with data on a day-to-day level, which is the approach we put into making our tools. Like, these tools are designed for everybody to use. And the hope is that if people do start using these, then that's going to actually make the practical difference of working with the data is going to change and make it easier within a kind of institutional setting. I think it's really interesting for me spending the last year speaking to academics, because there are a lot of kind of like cultural institutional reasons that prevent me working in data. But I don't think I answered your question, I'm sorry, but I'm maybe not the best person to ask. I hope that was interesting.
Okay, let's thank Joe once more.